Hey guys, Brandon Lewis here. 7 big stories you will not get anywhere other than at the Tennessee Conservative, the volunteer state's largest conservative news alternative. You are in the right place, and we are bringing you stories this week about, drumroll please, Facebook censoring conservative news story, calling it hate speech, but it's anything but. Sexual harassment claims on Expenditures still kept secret as accused representative is replaced. What's Cameron Sexton hiding? Covenant School files motion to intervene in release of shooter's manifesto, and I don't think it has anything to do with the schematics of the school. Personal opinion. Lee signs pair of Memphis FedExForum tax capture extensions. Nothing in the world that we like better here in the volunteer state than good old-fashioned corporate welfare. We're going to look at Lee signing teacher pay increase, but an end to automatic due payments. We are going to look at Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth report showing 1 in 5 kids live in poverty. And finally, Lee signs a bill restricting foreign ownership of Tennessee land. I can't believe it after Gary Hicks tried to kill the bill that it finally made it across the finish line. This is Brandon Lewis with the 10Con Big 7 Weekend Update, where we bring you the news that other outlets will not. And we do it in such a concise and entertaining fashion that you will be the most educated conservative you know, and you can harass, harangue, and otherwise shame all of your other friends who claim to be conservatives yet for whatever reason have no idea what's going on in their state government. Before we get into the news stories, and I'm going to make a special pitch to follow us on social media on other platforms in just a moment, and you will understand why. I want to get into the mailbag, baby. I was camping last weekend out deep in the Cherokee wilderness with my 2 beautiful children, one of my very best friends and his child, and it was blissful, but it was a lot of work. Oh, Lord, it was a lot of work. Probably about 16 hours of packing and unpacking. Had a great time. Out there, my beautiful wife joined me for Mother's Day, picked up the darling children after we had a celebratory get-together. Although the steaks may have gone bad in the cooler. That is the risk you run on a long, primitive camping trip out in the middle of nowhere. But we saw lots of beautiful sights, and we had a good time. And so I was not here last week as Adelia masterfully and just efficiently and professionally brought to you the Big 7. But I do understand that some of you have a preference for old Lou Dog here, and so I'm going to bring those to you. But before we do, let's get into ye oldie mailbag. And sometimes I have to scratch notes on these because people just send me very little, very short notes along with donations, which we desperately need and appreciate. Here's one. Thank you for all that you do. The Gibsons, there's just a little note in there. Notes, May 2, 2023. We're a little behind on the mailbag. Dear Brandon, thanks for all you do. Keep up your good work. Sincerely, Jeannie. I ask God to remind you that tough times never last, but faithful people do. Faithful people like you. Sometimes faith will make you look stupid until it starts to rain. Noah. And so there's a wonderful inspiration here. PTL. I think my wife wrote that on there. Maybe we don't know who that came from. Thank you, PTL. Oh, there's something on the very back. Dear Brandon and staff, thank you for all that you do to bring truth and sense to some kind of order out of the mess we call today. We really value and appreciate all the effort, time, sacrifice, and thought you invest into the Tennessee Conservative. I love listening to your weekly podcast, you and 5 other people. Thank you, and look forward to hearing it every Friday. Do not grow weary in doing good, for on due season we will reap. Galatians 6:9. Thank you very much. I appreciate you so much. I got another note here. Let's see who it's from. Last one. I really appreciate the Tennessee Conservative. Thank you, Billy. Well, that's very nice. Thank you, Billy. All right, guys. I appreciate you sending those notes of encouragement. Boy, that's about all we run on over here sometimes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get right into it. You often hear me talking about reasons that we should abandon ye oldie Facebook, and I have not seen a better one lately. Although I'm sure I will be surprised. We will probably not have a Facebook page very much longer. That would be my guess. First story, Facebook censors conservative news story, calls it hate speech. I just can't believe growing up, it was pounded into my head as a student of civics, American civics, and Western civilization, and at the time, Alabama state history, that free speech is like a tenet, a foundational pillar, but not apparently in the Orwellian state that we live in now. the People's Communist Republic of Big Tech. Here we go. Last week, Facebook censored an article from the Tennessee Conservative and prevented it from being shared on its platform for stating it was hate speech. Had nothing to do with an ethnicity, had nothing to do with a group, nothing. Just completely irrelevant flag. The article in question covered a resolution to fund additional voting machines in Williamson County that failed in the county commission by one vote. Citing the post violated community standards on hate speech, our organization is now in danger of being further restricted or having our page unpublished. Just so you know, we have been capped at like 41,000 followers for months. We used to have more reach than the Tennessean, the Knox News Sentinel, Chattanooga Times Free Press, the Commercial Appeal, you name it. Any other news publication in Tennessee, because we live in a conservative state and people desperately want conservative news. But Facebook does not want conservative news out there, and so they just turn it off. Citing the post was in violation of community standards according to Meta's standard on hate speech, Facebook doesn't allow content that attacks people because of their race, ethnicity, religion, caste, physical or mental ability, gender, or sexual orientation. We fail to see how this has anything to do with any of that. For 2 legislative sessions in a row, we have supported bills that would prevent the censorship of all Tennesseans by big tech platforms. Unfortunately, Tennesseans are not guaranteed free speech as lawmakers have unsuccessfully passed legislation protecting free speech on social media platforms, the modern-day public square. Imagine if someone was in the courthouse square, which is where free speech used to happen, or they came and shut down your paper, or they got on the phone and said, I'm sorry, I don't like the conversation. You have your AT&T landline access has been cut off. You can't say that on your cell phone. That's what's happening here. It's nothing different. So please go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, hit the subscribe button to get our e-newsletter, and even that thing has terrible deliverability because we have conservative words in there, and it goes to the old trash or spam can, just like a lot of emails I get from Republican organizations. They're not spam. Why they end up in my spam filter, I don't know. Follow us on the platforms where we've not been turned down or banned, like Gab, Getter, Truth, MeWe, Rumble, and Twitter. Twitter, we're getting great gains there, and that's where a lot of our state reps and state senators like to lie to people. And so we go there and tell the truth, and it seems to have an effect. So please do follow us on Twitter and share our content, because God knows Facebook is turning it way down. So share it on the other platforms. Next story. Sexual harassment claim expenditures still kept secret as accused representative is expelled. State officials are still denying the public any access to records regarding just how much taxpayer money was spent attempting to rectify the sexual harassment complaint filed against former state representative Scotty Campbell. Back in March, the House Ethics Subcommittee determined that Campbell had violated legislative policies by sexually harassing a 19-year-old intern. As a result, the intern was moved from her apartment to a hotel to complete her internship, and all of these things were shipped back to her home, and it has been said that the total cost was approximately $10,000, including almost $1,000 in cash. Well, that's really good accountability for government cash payments. Cash payments. How does the IRS and the rest of the thieving, slavery-inducing organizations that tax everything that we do 15 times, even to the grave with property tax, and even after you're retired, feel about cash that is not transparent or reported? Not very good, but the government just do as we say, not as we do. Officials from the Office of Legislative Administration have repeatedly denied requests from the media asking for transparency, claiming the legislature's harassment policy stipulates that strict confidentiality must be maintained. It is worth noting that while the policy does prohibit the release of information regarding victim identification, specific accusations, and disciplinary measures, it does not address whether or not officials are prohibited from releasing information regarding public spending. Questions have arisen as to whether state appropriation laws were actually followed. House Speaker Cameron Sexton has previously stated he had no knowledge of anyone in his office signing off on expense approval, which I do not believe. Nothing happens in either chamber without McNally or Sexton knowing about it. If he didn't know about it, he would have fired the staff that kept it from him, if he was smart. But instead, all of these elected officials just deny, delay, deny, and defend. That's what they do. They delay it, not releasing it to the public. When it comes out, they deny it, and then they defend the denial and the delay. That is the 3 Ds the 3Ds Rhino Playbook. Last week, Johnson County Commissioners appointed an interim replacement for Campbell. Former State Representative Timothy Hill returns to serve District 3, where he previously served as a representative from 12 to 20. Hill will hold his position until the special election is held to permanently replace Campbell. All right, guys, now listen. Go listen to my buddy, Mill Creek View Podcast, Tennessee. I was actually on there here recently. Recent episodes include interviews with Stephen, friend, FBI whistleblower, and senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America, Joseph Padilla, Wilson County Zone 4 school board member, fresh from his ethic complaints wins, Steve Gill with a tribute to national radio legend Phil Valentine, and don't forget to listen to the ever-popular Steve and Steve segment on every show as host Steve and producer Steve discuss the topics of the day that concern us all. That's what you call Stereo Steve. I think that's what you should call it, Steve. Stereo Steve. I'm just giving you that for free. That is a free moniker you can hang on there. I think that is better than Steve and Steve. That's just my opinion. Look for Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast on Rumble and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Got some great Tennessee opinion makers on there. I wish I could be as prolific in my interviewing of people as Steve is. As such, this is all you get most of the time is little old Brandon. I hope it does the job. Next story. Covenant School file motion to intervene in release of Shooter's Manifesto, which is strange to me. Let's get on with it. In light of recent lawsuits requesting release of the Covenant School Shooter's Manifesto, the school and Covenant Presbyterian Church took action earlier this week to prevent the public release of certain information. On Monday, Covenant attorneys filed 2 motions to intervene, one regarding a lawsuit brought by the Tennessee Firearms Association and another lawsuit brought by the Nashville Police Association. The motion requests that the court permit the church and school to protect interests related to the release of records sought by TFA and NPA, who are demanding that the personal journals and writings confiscated at the Covenant School Shootings home be released to the public. Now listen, if this protects people that are minors, if this protects the schematic of the school, fine. But that's not really what people are after. People are after, why did she do it? He do it. It do it. She. Why did she do it? Were there drugs involved? Is this whole, I am imagining something I'm not, and I have been psychologically or mentally abused, that nonsensical, irrational thought is being held, and I have been encouraged by that with both society and education and the medical establishment, and therefore what's right, wrong, real, and fake gets all jumbled up, and it leads to things like this, which we have seen that people that identify similarly have recently conducted a lot of mass shootings as a percentage of the population, very small percentage of the population, very large percentage of the mass shooters. Something that should be looked into. That is what people want to look into. They don't want to see the inside of the school. They don't, really care about the diagram of how the school or the church is laid out. At least I've not heard anybody saying that. Covenant wrote that releasing all of these written documents may endanger the school students and faculty by providing the public with confidential information. Now, if some of this confidential information turns out to be some of the things that have been said, and if this is personal in nature, which it probably is, if she went to the school, I think that needs to be part of the discourse, and people just need to know about it. It is horrific and awful. But, if you are indeed a follower of Jesus Christ, the truth will set you free, right? Fundamental tenet of Christianity. There's nothing wrong with getting the truth out there. Documents go on to speculate that the confidential information could include things like schematics of school facilities and confidential information about the Covenant School employees and students. TBI Director David Roche has previously described the shooter's written documents as ramblings without a clear motive. I don't know if I believe that. Tennessee House GOP delivered a letter to Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake on Monday, signed by 66 of 74 Republican House members, asking that all the shooter's writings and any relevant medical records be released. The state legislature's involvement in this public discourse would seem necessary at this point, given Governor Lee's announcement of reneging on his promise to protect your constitutional rights when he ran for office the first time, which is no surprise. At least he's consistent in his hypocrisy. A special legislative session to focus on gun reform, red flag laws, set to begin in August 21st of this year. If I were the House, I wouldn't agree to it. I wouldn't show. There would be no quorum. If I were the Senate, there would be no quorum to do any of this monkey business. It's going to turn into a media circus, and it's going to continue to give the state of Tennessee and all Republicans a black eye. That's my opinion. Many Tennessee Republicans, 66 of them in exact, would like to have access to as much information as possible concerning the circumstances and motivation before they decide how to legislate the issue if they should do anything. I believe there are probably all the laws on the books there need to be about this. Lawmakers reportedly have no issue with the idea of releasing the documents as redacted for privacy reasons. Good grief. Next story. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signed a pair of bills to continue tax captures. This is special corporate welfare treatment in order to fund renovations at Memphis's FedExForum, a future marketing of Bridgestone Arena. Give them bread and circuses, Bill Lee says, at your expense. His buddies at FedEx that get lots of exposure, right? Lots of exposure at taxpayer-funded Nissan Stadium. Lots of exposure at taxpayer funding. We don't have conservative leaders in the House or the Senate or the governor's mansion. What we have are corporate shills. Corporate shills. That's what we have. That's what we run on here. Corporate money is what turns the machinery of government in Tennessee. And they do not align with your conservative values, lest you be misinformed. The bills come after the state legislature approved $350 million from Lee's budget proposal to send directly to Memphis to fund part of the $684 million in sports facility improvements. Millions and billions for millionaires and billionaires. Plan for the city that renovations of the FedExForum along with renovations to Liberty Stadium, AutoZone Park, and a new soccer stadium. Imagine if some small business that had been slaving away for 40, 50, 20, 30 years here in Tennessee marched up to Bill Lee's office and said, hey, I'd like to put together a softball field in my community, and I'd like some of that free tax money. You reckon they'd get a hearing? I reckon they wouldn't. A 2% Shelby County car rental tax that will go toward bonds for the FedEx Forum work extended to 2059 in Senate Bill 935, sending an estimated $3.4 million annually to the Shelby County Sports Authority to help pay off the bonds. The fiscal note on the bill states that it allows Memphis to keep an estimated $5 million in state sales tax each year through 2059, and by extending the deal of the Nashville Bridgestone Arena will allow Nashville to keep $7 million in estimated taxes annually for expenses associated with securing current, expanded, and new events in Bridgestone. Here's the whole deal. Economists have shown that tax captures at sports arenas are similar to giving taxpayer funding directly to sports teams because the money spent in those arenas is generally diverted from local spending that would have been spent elsewhere. So, it's for the corporations and it's for the franchises. It ain't for you. All right, guys. Do help us here at the Tennessee Conservative reach that 5% giving level. If you listen to this podcast and you don't contribute financially, something is wrong with you. I can tell if somebody's a conservative by looking at two things, their calendar and their bank account. When you look at the money that flows in to the political pockets in Tennessee of leadership, and we did this with the Follow the Money report, you see that left-leaning corporations are just about, they are far and above the primary funder, but they're just about the only funder of politicians. And while conservative Christians don't want anything to change and they don't want to lose their rights, they also don't let go of any of their money. Well, those two things cannot exist for long. And so if you want to stem the tide of the creeping communist corporatism that is coming into Tennessee, that runs roughshod over your constitutional rights as we continue to feed, clothe, and house these rhinos in the legislature with left-leaning corporate money, you better put your money where your mouth is. Do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. We make a real big difference here at the Tennessee Conservative News. We have stopped bad legislation. We've pushed good legislation over the line, and we make it harder every day for rhinos to get reelected because when the truth has legs, but we're the only ones doing this. So, we send some reinforcements, send the cavalry, and you can mail your checks to Tennessee Conservative News. I appreciate all of you who do this. We've got some staunch supporters of our reporters who are fantastic. and it's amazing. Oh, by the way, and you can mail those checks to 1523 East 27th Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37404. For those of you who listen but do not watch, that is 1523 East 27th Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37404. Now, I should have put this at the beginning of the podcast, but I'm going to put it here. I'm going to be at Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga, this Sunday. I think it's like 6 or 6:30. Just search online for Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga, and go to their events tab. It's where I go to church. My friend Gary Humble is going to be there with me at this event where we're going to talk to you about what's really going on in Tennessee politics, and I specifically am going to give you some practical steps that you can take to make an effective difference at Calvary Chapel this weekend, Sunday. And old Gary and the family are going to hang out at Casa de Louis for a couple of nights. I get to see my buddy Luke and Gary's beautiful wife, very sweet woman, and I'm excited about it. It's going to be real fun. So if you want to come see us, I'll be out there. Come to my church. Come hang out. Sunday, it's at 6 or 6:30. I can't remember. I'm doing this. I'm not going to go back and re-record this. But I'm going to put it in the newsletter tomorrow. I'm going to send out a special announcement about it in the morning. I'm going to put it on all the social media channels. But Calvary Chapel, it's where I'm going to be. So if you want to come by and say hello, I would love to see you. It's right down the road from my house. So please do join us. And please do support us. Now listen, I forgot to do this part. Let me move on with it. When you give any amount, you get this Stop Feeding the Rhinos bumper sticker. You get this Don't California My Tennessee bumper sticker. We will send you a directory, minus Scotty Campbell, of all your state reps and state senators, so you can call them when they try to do the bidding of the corporate overlords and the lobbyists up there, which is primarily the only thing that gets done. And we will send you this Stop Feeding the Rhinos tumbler, and we'll also send you this Proud Tennessee Conservative koozie if you give $50 or more, or a $10 donation that is recurring monthly or more. And if it weren't for you recurring donors out there, we would not exist. And sometimes I just get so worn out doing this on the side that I need all the financial encouragement I can get. Last year, as I may have mentioned previously, I worked probably 750 to 1,000 hours on this, and we made negative $3,000. So please do send your support. All right. Lee signs teacher pay increase and an end to automatic dues payments. Bill Lee signed a bill that would raise the minimum wage for K through 12 teachers and end the collection of dues for professional employee organizations as an automatic payroll withdrawal. The minimum teacher pay will increase incrementally from the current $40,000 to $50,000 for the 2026 to 2027 school year by bumping the minimum to $42,000 in the fall and $44,500 the next year, and continuing to rise. Bill sponsors argue that the Tennessee Education Association is a political organization and public entities should not be collecting their dues. Amen. That just goes to show you how incestuous and corrupt our government education is the fact that this ever happened anyway, because the TEA is nothing but a left-leaning Democrat operation machine. The TEA donated $529,000 to candidates in the 2018 election cycle and had assets of $11.5 million, with $9.2 million in revenue and $10.9 million in expenses that year. Americans for Prosperity Tennessee State Director Tori Venable, one of my friends, said the Paycheck Protection Act will increase teacher salaries and prevent automatic deductions from their paychecks. We thank Governor Lee for putting these proposals forward and every member of the legislature who voted to prioritize students and teachers over unions. Now listen, all this is great, but to me it's kind of like, and I'm all for paying teachers, but here's the thing, only 53% of funding makes it into the classroom. The easiest way to increase teachers' pay is to cut down all this administrative bureaucracy and all of these BS programs and bloat and waste that we have in education and put it in the teacher's pocket to reduce class size so that kids get a better education. Now, if you ran a restaurant and that restaurant had no accountability for the quality of the food or the service or the cleanliness of the restaurant, there's no accountability. And whether you serve the world's best meal in the best environment and in the most wonderful atmosphere, or if you serve the sloppiest, grossest mess and a pile of filth, if the pay was still the same regardless, just magically increasing people's pay does not change the output of the service. Put another way, throwing money at a broken system over and over again without any consequences and without any market pressure doesn't change anything. That's why we've been staring basically the exact same situation in the face for 40 or 50 years. I doubt this will have any change whatsoever in the quality or the standardized test scores of any of these kids or the client, aka parent satisfaction. My opinion. Yours may vary. Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth report shows 1 in 5 kids live in poverty. Nearly 1 in 5 Tennessee children live in poverty, a measure of well-being that varies sharply by geography. In rural Lake County, for example, the number of children living below the poverty line is double the state average. Meanwhile, in wealthy Williamson County, fewer than 4% of children are being raised under such economic strains. The data released Tuesday by the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth paints an uneven portrait of Tennessee's children in county-by-county snapshots that also measure the rates of low birth weight babies, educational outcomes, child care costs, child abuse, and family circumstances. County poverty rates coincide with other stressors facing families and children. The 10 counties with the highest rates of poverty for kids also are among those with the greatest rates of low birth weight, child care cost burdens, and food insecurity. Among the top 10 counties for child poverty are Shelby and Davidson, Memphis and Nashville. Now, I thought the Democrats had this stuff all under control. They had all the solutions, yet their local governance does not seem to be producing any better results, and in fact worse than the ones that are red. Curious. Same goes with the educational outcomes of the government schools in those areas. Small population counties of Haywood, Hardeman, and Madison counties in West Tennessee and Campbell in Eastern Tennessee also have outsized numbers of poor children. A child living in the lowest performing county was half as likely to be proficient in TCAP reading compared to the state average. The disparities also extend to rates of child abuse and neglect. Clay County had the highest rates of substantiated abuse or neglect at nearly 34 per 1,000 kids. Moore County had the lowest at 0.8 per 1,000. The report is released annually by the Commission, an independent state-funded entity responsible for providing objective analysis and serving as a watchdog for the Department of Children's Services. Well, buddy, that must be a full-time job. Earlier this year, the Commission survived an attack backed by the administration of Governor Bill Lee to dissolve it after it released a critical report on DCS. Billy don't like bad news. Allergic to the truth as well. Next story, good news segment. Bill Lee signs bill restricting foreign ownership of Tennessee land. Do not forget that Gary Hicks gavelled this down without any discussion, and it's amazing that it came back to life and was passed. Governor Bill Lee officially signed into law measures that restrict foreign ownership of property within the borders of Tennessee on May 11, 2023. With this new law in place, foreign entities and individuals will not be able to purchase real estate in this state if they reside in a county currently sanctioned by the U.S. government. Right now, there are a total of 38 countries in the U.S. sanctioned in the program's by country list. The House version of this bill, House Bill 40, was sponsored by Representative Jay Reedy, and Senate bill was sponsored by Senator Frank Nicely. Governor Lee officially signed the bill into law on Thursday of last week, and it will take effect July 1st, 2023, at which time every non-resident alien, foreign business, or foreign government, or an agent, trustee, or fiduciary thereof who owns an interest in real property in the state will have a period of 60 days from the date of the property purchase to register said property with the state secretary. Back that, reverse it, as Willie Wonka would say, Secretary of State. Additionally, this law is not retroactive, meaning it will not apply to any real property purchased and or held before it goes into effect. All right, guys, do go subscribe to this podcast. Now, if you didn't hit the subscribe button, if you have not given us a 5-star review and you appreciate this puppy, please do. It helps other people find us. I'm always amazed and baffled that people actually do find us, as much as they try to turn us down, censor us, and silence us through Google searches. We can't get designated as an official news outlet, even though there are all kinds of left-wing rags that print scurrilous nonsense. Facebook turns us down, turns us off, but somehow, some way, people still find us. I mean, people go out and search for conservative news. The ones that are interested and motivated, which isn't everybody or most people, actually a very small minority. But I'm glad when they find us. Do remember Calvary Chapel this weekend, Sunday evening, 6 or 6:30. I don't know. Just go into Google, type in Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga. It's the one on Broad Street in St. Elmo. It's in Chattanooga, but it's the St. Elmo area. And I'll be there with Gary Humble, my buddy, and we're going to be talking some truth. You tell the truth, it'll cost you. It'll cost you money. It'll cost you personal prestige. It'll cost your reputation in certain circles. But if you look biblically, if you look at the prophets, if you look at the apostles, if you look at the folks that the Lord Almighty decided to remind us of their stories and set them up as examples, they typically had hard times of it, and it was almost always because they told the truth